Today I do the Sasuke Uchiha Breakdown. Just like in my previous episode with Naruto, I'm going to break down each iteration of Sasuke, basically explaining how fast each of them is, how much damage they do with their combos, jutsus, and ultimates, as well as the range of their jutsus and ultimates. Let's get into it. We're going to start with the youngest Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha, when he was just a teen. We're going to start with the Fireball Jutsu. I will take on the younger version of Naruto. Now in the last episode, it tended to go pretty long only because there was 5 iterations of Naruto. There's actually 6 iterations of Sasuke, so this one may be slightly longer, but I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. Let's get into it. First, we're going to start off with the combos. Combos look like they do about 15 to 20% damage. Down one seems to do slightly more. The up one doing about the same amount of damage as the previous one. Now, this is a projectile, so it should go across the entire screen. Let's see how much damage it does. It pretty much goes across the screen. It looks like it does a set amount of damage while also doing chip damage, assuming that effect is activated. So in total, it looks like it takes about, on the initial hit, it looks like it takes between 10 to 15% damage. And with the chip damage, it looks like you end up causing a good 15 to 20% damage. So not bad, not bad. His speed, in terms of his speed, he's pretty average. Not the fastest ninja, but not the slowest. His tilt is a kick. Leads into a combo, but I won't recommend it only because of the distance. The distance it requires, you might as well just do your regular combo. It does do more damage. All of the throws do the same amount of damage. They just kind of look a bit different. Now let's get into the Ultra.
You're spoiling my view.
And that does about the same amount of damage as Naruto's Ultras does, in which it looks like it takes about 35 to 40% damage. Let's see the range of the Ultra. All the way across.
You're spoiling my view.
And it does not go across the entire map. I repeat, it does not go across the entire map. It does have a range to it.
You're spoiling my view.
If you look to see how much chakra it takes about 15, well, there's only one bar, so I would say it takes about 20 to 25% of your chakra. His fireball actually takes more. His fireball takes about 25 to 30% of your chakra. So let me see something really quickly. 1 fireball, 2 fireball, 3 fireball, and that's pretty much it. You can only do 3 fireballs before you have to recharge it up. Let's see the Ultra.
You're spoiling my view. You're spoiling my view.
That's 3. I know it's actually charging up a bit, so this may not be a really good accurate. So it's about 3 of the Ultras as well, but the Ultras do tend to leave a little bit more chakra readily available. So let's see the transform state now.
I'll show you the power of the Uchiha clan.
So in his transform state, he is actually still about the same speed. He does have some sort of weird glide effect that seems to slow him down a bit, but ultimately he's about the same speed. Combo. Combo does do a bit more damage, looking at about 20 to 25% damage on his base combo. An up combo, I missed it, but I'll try it again. I don't know what that was. That's actually his tilt. Oh, he actually has a pretty good tilt, I would say. Yep, I would say he has a pretty decent tilt. It's relatively slow, but it can be useful if utilized correctly. That takes about 20% damage, and his down combo does about 20 to 25% damage. His jutsu does not go across the screen, unfortunately. It does go pretty far, but not across the screen. It's average speed. I wouldn't say it's very fast. I won't say it's slow. If you do hit him with it, you can expect between 15 to 20% damage done on the opponent, which means his combos do tend to take more power. In terms of the amount of chakra it's consuming, you can see that. Looks like it's taking about 30%. So yeah, each Chidori in his transform state takes about 30% of his chakra. Okay, so his Chidori does not have much range. His Fireball, without a doubt, has a lot more range, being that the Fireball can go across the screen. Another thing too, whereas the Fireball comes out instantly and tends to travel relatively quickly, his Chidori has a weird animation which he actually dodges back first and then charges with you. It's not the fastest move in the game. He's moving with pretty average speed. And the fact that he does that weird dash first, unless somebody's up close and personal, where I can see that little dash coming in handy, it's not very useful for a long range or even mid-range encounters, as once people see that backflip, they'll understand what you're about to do. So unless somebody's close to you and attacking and you do it, that's where it comes in handy. Anywhere else, it's pretty predictable and easy to see and counter. Now the amount of chakra it takes, oh, I actually broke it. It looks like it takes about the same amount of chakra as the Fireball, which seems to be about 30%. Yep, takes about 30% of your chakra. And as for the amount of damage it does, you're looking at, it actually looks like less damage than the Fireball. Let's see that one more time. Yes, I would have to say it's actually less damage. Now the base damage is about the same as the Fireball, where it looks like it's between 10 to 15%. But with the Fireball, you're looking at chip damage, assuming that effect is active. Now if the effect is active, I would highly recommend going with the Fireball, as it has an unlimited range to it. It has slightly higher base damage, as well as having chip damage that increases the damage, the overall damage. Okay, so first we'll start off with his speed. His speed seems to be pretty comparable to his younger, no, actually he's slightly faster. This older Sasuke is slightly faster than his younger counterpart. Just a bit, not so much. Okay, his attack seems to do about 15% damage. Which is, if I'm not mistaken, is about what his younger counterpart was doing. His down one actually does more damage. His down one does about 15 to 20% damage, whereas his regular and upper combo does only 15% damage. That looks like a lot of damage. So if you are going to do a combo with the older Sasuke, I would recommend doing his down combo, as it does do a bit more damage. Again, you're looking at about about 20% damage. Now we are going to test his tilt. Doesn't have much range on it. I can see some use for it only because nobody can really see it, but the range in which it's effective and which you can actually hit them with it is so close that you're better off just doing a combo. I would recommend doing that in a real serious fight, unless the opponent does not see it coming. Because again, it's on the floor, not something that's easily visible, but not something too practical in an intense battle. So let's see his jutsu. Fireball should go across the entire screen. I'm assuming it's going to do chip damage as well. God, he had 2 iterations of it. So that was the stronger one, the massive dragon fireball, which looks like it does about 20% damage, which is not bad. His regular one is faster. His regular fireball is faster. It does seem slightly weaker, as the base damage only does between 10 to 15 damage, topping off at between 15 to 20% damage. Let's try that one more time. Base damage about 10 to 15%, and with the chip damage, you're looking ultimately at a little less than 20%. I want to say somewhere around 17-18%. So you're looking at between 15 to 20% damage with the regular one. Now let's see how many chakra it takes. You're looking at about 30% damage, chakra cost with each fireball. When you hold it, it takes the same amount of chakra. It's only 30% chakra. So whether you hold it or fire it fast, it consumes the same amount of chakra. So if possible, if you are able to, I would highly recommend that you do hold it and charge it up a bit, as it does more damage, and we're going to see that right now. So if you hold it, okay, so assuming if one of them hits it, you're only looking between 5 to 10% damage, with a chip damage leading to as much as about 15%. Now, if in a situation in which both of them hit, then you're looking at more damage. So it really depends, because right now I can't hit him twice with it, whereas before I was able to hit him twice with it. That time I was able to hit him twice with it. I gotta hit him up. One moment, let me get him out the way. Another thing to note is that when you hold it, that's not a jutsu that's optimal for close range battles. When you hold it, it's better if used at a longer range. So again, the initial damage is about 15%, whereas the chip damage can bring it up to as much as 20%. So that's actually very, very useful. Now let's get into the Ultra. See the range on this Ultra. Going all the way back, can't go any further back. True Spear does not have much range on it. It looks like it has about the same amount of range as Young Sase's Chidori. I will say it does not take much chakra though. In fact, it looks like I can probably do it about 4 times, which means it only takes about 25% of your chakra. Between 20 to 25% of your chakra. I know my chakra is slowly regenerating. I know my chakra is slowly regenerating, but it seems to take slightly less chakra. I want to say between 25 to 30%. But it's only something that you can use maybe 3 times back to back, where you would have to charge it up slightly to use it that 4th time. So let's get into his Ultra form now.
I'll finish you off.
Start with combos. Combo does about 25% damage, between 20 to 25% damage. I have to move him out the way. Wow, his grab actually does a decent amount of damage. Let's see what his ult,
You can't get away.
his tilt is pretty good. I will say that so far I'm impressed with the transform state tilt, in which it's a quick chakra, it's a quick dash ending with an electric uppercut, which shoots the opponent in the air. It's fairly quick, does not consume any sort of chakra, so this is definitely something that can be useful in a battle. Let's see the range of his jutsu. I remember this jutsu. Not the most practical jutsu. It consumes about 30% of your chakra. It has virtually no range. I can see from the previous iterations of the game that they did increase the speed in which the jutsu does hit, but it's not the most practical jutsu unless you're in a close range battle. It does not have no real long range applications to it, unfortunately. In this state, I can see Sasuke does tend to move a little, with the glide animation, I would say it's roughly around the same. This is a very weak jutsu. It does virtually no damage, actually. Yeah, I would highly not recommend using this jutsu if you were to transform. In fact, his tilt actually has more use and does more damage than his his tilt actually is more effective because of the range of his tilt and does more damage than his actual jutsu. His jutsu does not hit up close, and in fact only hits when it comes down. Oh, okay. So, oh man, that's not good. That's not good at all, ladies and gentlemen. So it seems for this jutsu to do its optimal damage, it has to be hit in a certain way, in a certain angle, in which after he comes down, the lightning coming up also hits you. Now, if that lightning coming up misses you, then it's only going to do maybe 5% damage. Whereas if the lightning does hit you, then it could do as much as 15% damage. Not even, it's about 10% damage. That was about 15% damage. So this is a very hit or miss kind of jutsu. I highly do not recommend it. Again, I will say that his base combos are a lot more powerful. You are looking at about 20% damage with each combo. So unless you're somebody who's going to constantly be attacking him, I highly do not recommend transforming with this particular Sasuke. Now, I did forget to do his ultimate jutsu, which we are going to actually do right now. As soon as this transform state actually runs out, unfortunately. I am disappointed at the range of this particular jutsu and that the hit or miss damage, only because in this transform state, compared to other Sasuke's, they tend to do a bit more damage. And it does take 30% of his chakra to use, so. Now let's see what the true Chidori does. Again, we already seen the range on the true Chidori. It has about the same amount of range as the young Sasuke Chidori, which is not a lot. It's not the fastest move. And it's actually fairly weak. Actually, I had the health up on Naruto. Let's put it at normal, because it does tend to heal during the cutscene of the Ultra. So let's see. Beat them up in the air. And it is actually weak. It's a fairly weak Ultra, whereas other people's Ultra takes about 35 to 40% damage. This only took between 20 to 25% damage, unfortunately. Which means in order to kill somebody with this, you would actually have to hit them with it 4 times. If I'm not mistaken. Let me see. This should be 4. yes, that is, I mean, with all of them, you have to hit them 4 times, but with this one, if you hit them 3 times, they are left with more energy than all of the Naruto's ultras, as well as even his younger version. His younger version actually has a stronger.
Begin!
And in this one, we're just basically gonna do his Chidori because for the most part he has the same moves.
Chidori Stream! Chidori Blade!
So if you hold it, it doesn't go across the screen. It does have a cool animation in which he dodges left and right. So if somebody is attacking with like a particular fireball or something, he does run the possibility of being able to dodge that fireball during that state. That consumes a large amount of chakra, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see that one more time. It could be that I just didn't charge up my chakra. Nope, takes about 30%. Yep. They both have the same amount of range, whether you hold them or do not hold them. The difference is when you hold them, he does dodge left and right. They do take about 30% chakra, whether you hold it or not. Now, if you don't hold it, you're looking between 10 to 15%, closer to that 10% mark. Now, if you do hold it, oops, that's not a good, accurate representation. Try that one more time. So again, if you don't hold it, you are looking at about between 10 to 15%, closer to that 10% mark though. Now if you do hold it, you are looking at about 15%, closer to the 15% mark. So whereas you don't hold it, you're looking at 10%, and they drop right in front of you. If you do hold it, you're looking at 15%, and he kicks them further away to give you some distance. Okay. So now we're looking at Ultra. Hopefully this Ultra does do a lot more damage than his True Spear Ultra, which is one of the weakest Ultras I've seen in the game so far.
With the thunderclap, be gone.
So yes, this does noticeably more damage. It's actually on par with his younger form, as well as all of the Naruto's ultras, in which it does about 35 to 40% damage.
The name of this jutsu is Kirin.
So if you are gonna pick Sasuke, and if you are going to pick this particular Sasuke, make sure you choose this Ultra. One, because the True Spear does not have very long range. Another thing too is he's coming at you, so it's fairly slow, especially if it's done from a distance. Whereas, and it does less damage. The True Spear Ultra does less damage, whereas this one can be done at any range. It's a lot faster, and it does more damage. Another thing too, if Sasuke starts this Ultra and he gets hit, the Ultra will still hit the floor.
The name of this jutsu is Kirin.
So if you're not paying attention, even after you hit Sasuke, you can still get caught by the Ultra. So this one tends to...
Begin!
Okay, so we are going to start with his combo. In terms of his speed, he's basically on par with pretty much every other Sasuke. Sasuke has always been slightly faster than Naruto, so he is a little bit faster. And his combos, base combo looks like it's about 15% damage. Down combo looks like it takes slightly more, between 15 to 25% damage. Up one looks like it's about 15% damage. Now we will move on to grab. Actually has a decent amount of range. Interesting enough, this particular Sasuke's hilt is the other Sasuke's Ultra, which is interesting. Not the most practical move, as it doesn't have the best range. As you can see, I'm not very far from him and can't hit him. But if you can hit him with it, it does do a decent amount of damage and can lead into another combo. If you're fast enough. I know what I'm doing. Alright, I'm messing it up, but you can lead it into another combo, so not the most practical thing to do, but if you can pull it off, it can lead to some heavy damage. So let's see where his jutsu. Right. So he has a base Chidori, does about 30% takes away about 30% chakra. Range is pretty much like every other Chidori we've seen so far. The Chidori blade seems to have slightly more range on it, which is actually pretty interesting. I did not know that. It does do the cool dodging thing, in which if the opponent is attacking you with a projectile, you can kind of dodge it left as he's moving left and right. So let's see that one more time. That one stops right there, but when I do the Chidori True Spear, he actually ends up a bit closer. And the fact that he's dodging left or right makes him a harder target to hit. One thing I will say though is because he's dodging left and right, he's moving about the same speed as he's moving when he does his regular Chidori. So now let's see the damage. Regular Chidori, not very powerful, looking between 10 and 15%. Chidori Blade, a little bit more powerful, about 15%, and he takes you further away. So let's see the Ultra. The Ultra does not have much range at all. Unfortunately, quite disappointing for an eye jutsu that should follow you no matter wherever he's looking. That's actually very disappointing. But it only takes about 30% chakra, which means you can do it 3 times straight before having to charge up. I will say though, as the flame is coming out, as the flame is on the screen and is coming towards the opponent cannot shoot any jutsu or shoot out any ninja stars that will stop it. Unfortunately, it will continue going until it blows up. Now, we are going to see the damage it takes. And that does a decent amount of damage. It does pretty much at what I expect to be average damage, which is about 35% damage. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm glad. Now let's see in his awakening state.
You did well, but now it's over. Time to use it.
So in his awakening state, he activates the Mangugetsu Sharigan. It seems like he only activates it in one eye. He has the same grab. Has the same tilt. He also has the same combo. So it's not much changed in his transform state other than his jutsu. He actually still moves at about the same speed. He has not gotten faster, at least much faster. Doesn't seem noticeably faster in my opinion. Let's see his damage. He does see a damage increase in which his attacks do about 20 to 25% damage now, as opposed to 15% damage. Yep, about between 20 to 25% damage. Whereas the bottom attack one does do slightly more damage. You're looking between 20 to 25%, closer to 25% on a down attack. Whereas the regular attacks are actually closer to like 20% mark. And that's pretty much it. Let's see if his jutsu. So his jutsu does actually less damage than his Chidori. Now, granted, it does do more damage than his base Chidori, but in terms of his Chidori blade, it actually does less damage than his Chidori blade. One thing that it does have going for it is that it does follow the opponent across the entire screen. Oh, it doesn't even reach the entire screen, unfortunately. It has less range. Well, it doesn't have less range. It has about the same amount of range as the Chidori True Spear. It does take 30% of your chakra. Nope, about 35% of your chakra, actually. So yes, you can only do it maybe twice before having to charge up your chakra, unfortunately. It does come out relatively slow. Well, no, it comes out relatively quickly. The only difference is it does leave Sasuke temporarily vulnerable after he releases it. So after Sasuke does it, he cannot move for a temporary amount of time as he touches his eye. So ultimately, I would have to argue that this Sasuke is probably not the best Sasuke to choose. As in his awakened state, he's not much different with the exception of a damage buff and a different jutsu, which does slightly more damage than the base Chidori, but less damage than the Chidori blade, and has a temporary vulnerability after releasing his jutsu. Okay, so now this is the 5 Kage Sasuke summit. Secret attack. Utilizes Susanoo a bit more. That looks like it took about 15% damage, which is not bad. About average. Try that one more time. About 15% damage. Use up one. Up one should take about 15%. About 15% damage. It does seem like after the armor breaks, the damage does increase slightly. That was closer to 20% damage, actually. Interesting. His down one does still do more damage, which I'm noticing with most people, that their down attack tends to do slightly more damage than their base one. Whereas the down one does closer to 20% damage, the base one and the upper one does closer to 15% damage. Grab doesn't have much range on it, unfortunately.
You can't get away.
His tilt doesn't have much range on it either.
You can't get away.
Not something I would recommend in the middle of a battle.
You can't get away.
It does act as a deterrent though. It can act as a deterrent. Doesn't do much damage, unfortunately. Let's see his ultra now. Well, his jutsu. In terms of this Sasuke does seem to be a bit faster. His speed tends to be a little bit more on par with Itachi, as he does that quick little shimmer. Although his shimmer doesn't move him as far as with Itachi.
Inferno style, flame control.
Flame control does not have much range on it, unfortunately, and it does take only 30% chakra. About 35% chakra. Means you can only do it about 2 times before having to charge up, unfortunately, so that's a big handicap. Now let's see his ultra. Nope, wait, first we gotta see how much it does.
Inferno style, flame control.
His jutsu only does about 10 to 15% damage, closer to that 10% mark, unfortunately. It does knock them back and knock a bunch of chakra out of them, but it's not the most strongest move, which is disappointing for a black flame attack. You would think a black flame attack would do a lot more damage than that. But unfortunately it does not. The only benefit that it does is knock them down as well as knock some chakra out of them. So let's see his ultimate jutsu. Range on it. If I'm not mistaken, I should be able to do it from anywhere on the map. Yep. So the cool thing about his ultimate jutsu is that it can be done anywhere around the map, as it can hit you from any range, any distance. It can hit you behind trees, no matter, you cannot hide from it. If it's activated, the only thing the opponent can do is either run or block. If they stand there and attempt to hit you before you can get it out or anything like that, they're most likely going to get caught in the ultra. Now the ultra does do about the same amount of power, does consume the same amount of chakra as the... No, it actually seems to take a bit more chakra. If hit, is connected, it takes a bit more chakra. It takes about 40% chakra, which means you can only do it 2 times. But the damage is between 35 to 40%, which is actually very good. Now let's see him in his transform state, or his Susanoo state. Okay, Susanoo. Grab is pretty useless, he just punches the floor. Okay, his tilt is extremely useful. That was actually his tilt I just did. And his tilt actually has an unlimited range to it. You can shoot it from anywhere across the screen, and assuming that the opponent stays still, is going to connect with them. Doesn't do much damage, but it's still a very good move to attack your opponent from a distance. It can be spam, as it does not take any chakra. It is fairly fast. It's fairly fast due to it does not take long to travel across the screen, as you can see. So that's extremely useful. Let's see where his combos are now. His speed, I will say that his speed does... His speed is basically the same speed as when he's not transformed. As you can see him just moving within Susanoo as regular. The difference is Susanoo does become a bigger target, so he is easier to hit. So when you are in this transform state, you are a bigger target, you are easier to hit. Now, in terms of combos, his combo does do a lot of damage. You're looking at about 20 to 25% damage, close to that 25% mark. Yeah, you're looking close to that 25% mark. Let's see, does he have different combos? He does have different combos. They all seem to be roughly around the same amount. Nope, I was mistaken. It's just one combo. One combo that does a set amount of damage. That was his grab. His grab seems to knock you into the air, relatively high into the air. That's because he does not have no air combos, doesn't really come in handy other than to disorient your opponent and knock out more combos, which can be really useful. Now let's see his jutsu. It's basically the same jutsu, unfortunately. Does not have a ton of range. Let's see if it at least suffered got a damage buff. And which it does not. It actually does the same amount of damage as when he's in his base state, unfortunately. Still takes about the same amount of chakra, which is about 30% chakra, which means which is about 35% chakra, which means you'll only be able to do it twice before having to charge up your chakra to do it again, unfortunately. So with this transform state, it is basically hit or miss. You do have the added addition of the tilt, which does have unlimited range, can be spammed, and does not consume any sort of chakra. You do have the damage buff, in which you can do more damage with your attack, but you do suffer from the same jutsu that does the same amount of damage, as well as have the same amount of range, and becoming a bigger target. So this is definitely a well-balanced transformation. So depending on how you play, this can be beneficial to you or not.
Serious.
Okay, so let's see what his attacks are about. Oops, that might have been his tilt. His tilt is actually pretty useful. His tilt seems to have an unlimited range, which is very beneficial, especially for a tilt. Nope, not unlimited range. I repeat, it does not have unlimited range, but it does have a decent amount of range. It does not do a lot of damage, unfortunately. I do notice it does stun the opponent slightly, not enough for you to do any damage unless you pull out a support character. But it is really good, the fact that you have a tilt with such a decent amount of range to it. The good thing about this tilt is that it does have a lot of range, does not do a lot of damage, but it does not consume any chakra, which means you can spam it. Okay. And let's see his combos.
Don't even think about it.
Yeah, he actually took a decent amount. You're looking at about 15 to 20% damage. Wait, gotta stop it. Gotta let his health heal up. Alright, so base damage, you're looking between 15 to 20% damage. Looks like it's a little bit closer to that 20% damage mark. Upper one, same thing, 15 to 20% damage. Down one's actually slightly more, which is something I've noticed with all of the iterations of all of the characters, in which the down combo does tend to do slightly more, which that down combo did about 20 to 25% damage, so to that 25% mark. I would say roughly around 23 to 24 damage, and that's about average with all of the down combos with each player. Now we're going to get into the actual jutsu. Can't go any further back. So the Inferno style takes about 30% of your chakra, which means you can do it about 3 times before you have to charge up your chakra. But it does not go across the screen. It does elevate across the map, but not across the entire screen, unfortunately. It does have a set range to it. Now let's see what the damage is on this bad boy. It does not do much damage, and I'm noticing something about the Black Flame in this game, that one of the most strongest jutsus in the Naruto universe does not do much damage at all, unfortunately. It takes between 5 to 10% damage, which is almost nothing. This is the cool thing about the jutsu, though, is that once you shoot it, no matter what type of jutsu the opponent does, it, unless it's another Black Flame, of course, it will not cancel it out. This move will actually go through any jutsu, so if they shoot a fireball, it will cut through the fireball and continue on. But it does not have a lot of range, and it does not do a lot of damage, unfortunately. Let's see what his ultra is about. And to get a more accurate damage, put it on normal. In terms of his speed is basically on par with the other Sasuke speed, the 5 Summit Sasuke speed. He's not no faster, nor is he much slower.
Inferno style, Susanoo flame control.
So I will say that this Sasuke's ultimate has an unlimited range to it. It takes, if it's connected, you're looking at about 35 to 40% of your chakra being taken. If not, it's about 30%. But it does have an unlimited range to it. It does do about 35% damage. Not so much between 35 to 40. I would say it's closer to that 35% range damage. But it does have a limited range, which is extremely useful. So you make that with the tilt, and you have a pretty decent Sasuke here. Unfortunately, his jutsu does not do much damage. His only benefit to his jutsu is that it can cut through other jutsu. Let's see what he's like in his transformed state. Now we have a full body Susanoo here. He is slower. He definitely is slower. Noticeably slower. He is a bigger target, so he is easier to hit. I will say that. Let's see what his tilt is. His tilt looks cool, but it has almost no range to it, which means you have to be up close in person in order to hit somebody with this. It does look like his tilt can be used as a shield, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that just yet. Let's see what his jutsu is. So his jutsu is actually a lot better in this state. In this state, he shoots a flame arrow at you, which has unlimited range. It can hit across the screen. I'm assuming because it's a flame arrow that it'll cut through other jutsus, but don't quote me. I have not had a chance to test that out just yet. And it does do more damage than the base jutsu, which it looks like it takes about 15% damage, whereas the other one only took between 5 to 10% damage. So this grab is just a slash, unfortunately. Knocks the opponent back. It does do a lot of damage. I will say it does about 10 to 15% damage. In terms of his combos, his combo seems weaker, actually, than the other iterations. His combo does about the same amount of damage as when he's not transformed, which is about 15 to 20% damage, unfortunately. He does only have that one combo from what I can see here, and it only does 15 to 20% damage. So, I mean, this particular transformation, I would say, is not the most useful transformation. In fact, I would probably recommend not transforming. This particular Sasuke is probably not the best Sasuke either. He does have a cool looking Ultra, but I would argue that he's probably not the best Sasuke in the game. Seems to be fairly weak, and in his transformed state, the only benefit to his transformed state is this jutsu.
Serious.
Okay, so as with all the other Sasuke, all his moves are pretty much the same. You're gonna have the same jutsu, same damage and everything. Only difference would be his Ultra. So let's test out his Ultra. So this Ultra actually has less range than his other Ultra. It has almost no range. He has to be completely close in order to hit you with it. Takes about 30% of your chakra, which means you can do it about 3 times before needing to charge up. But if it hits you, I'm pretty sure it's going to be about 40%, which means you can do it twice if you hit somebody with it. So let's see the damage now.
Flame control.
Kano actually looks different.
These eyes.
So it does the base 35% damage, 35 to 40% damage, close to that 35% mark. Doesn't do any chip damage, even though he hits you with a black flame. You would think it would do chip damage. So all in all, this Sasuke is probably not the best Sasuke, but
Let's finish this.
okay, so let's start with combos. I'm assuming combos are probably going to be about the same. Oh, they look so cool. Man, that animation took so long that his health actually charged back up. That's pretty cool in the sense that his base combo ends with pretty much Taka Sasuke's Ultra. So let's actually take away this unlimited damage so we can see how much damage it actually does. I would assume it would do a lot of damage, so it only does about 15% damage, but let's see what it does after his armor is broken. Come on, break your armor. Cool that he does the Amaterasu with the Sharigan. Okay, so try it out now. Yeah, we're looking at about 15% damage roughly. I want to say between 15 to 20% damage. Let's see his other combo. That's about 15% damage, close to that 15% mark. The down ones tend to do a bit more damage, so let's see what happens. Holy crap. Due to the animation, his health actually healed, so we wasn't able to get an accurate presentation, so let's put that back. planetary station as just a regular combo. That's awesome. If I'm not mistaken, that's Madara's Ultra, or one of the Madara's Ultras. He has that just as a basic combo. That's his down combo. It looks like it took about 20% damage, which looks like that's about what his regular attack does. So his regular and down attack does about 20% damage, whereas his up one does about closer to 15% damage. See that with the combo, like the way his looks. That's so freaking awesome. That's his combo. That's a combo that's better, that looks better than some people's ultras. Alright, that's enough. This particular Sasuke is just as fast as pretty much all his other iterations. No faster, no slower. Sasuke in general is just a fast character. He is a relatively quick character. So don't be mistaken, this is average speed for him, but this is actually a lot faster than some characters in the game. So let's test out his jutsu. Well, first let's do his tilt. And his tilt is basically the flame control. It doesn't have much distance, but it does have a decent amount of distance for a tilt. And it looks pretty useful due to the fact that it's a black flame. I'm assuming that it can go through jutsu. It does have a decent amount of range, does not do much damage, and it only stuns them briefly. Doesn't really stun them enough for me to... well, yeah, you can kind of stun your opponent. Again, you can activate it at a pretty decent range. Stun them enough for you to close the gap on it, so that's extremely useful. So let's, and again, it does not consume any jutsu, so that's another plus about it too. Not something you're gonna spam due to the fact that the range is a lot closer than you would like it to be. But again, it is a tilt worth using, I would say. So let's get to jutsu. Jutsu does not have much range on it, unfortunately. It doesn't have much range at all. You can hold it, and if you hold it, it does have a limited range. I will say that. So if you tap it, let's see what happens if you tap it first. See how much chakra it takes. That takes more chakra than most of his other ones. That looks like it's closer to 35%. Yeah, so his regular Chidori takes about 35% chakra, which means you can only do it 2 times before you have to charge up, which actually sucks, and it does not have much range to it at all. But if you charge it, it's the same amount of chakra and it has unlimited range, which is extremely useful. The other useful thing is that he actually teleports. So if the opponent is actually throwing projectiles at you, you can charge this up, assuming that the projectile doesn't hit you, you can actually teleport and actually come up next to the opponent and hit them with a Chidori, and they won't even know what hit them, because you basically just teleport next to them. So that's actually pretty cool. It does not work very well against opponents that are constantly moving though, I will say that, because I've tried to hit my friend Zal plenty of times with it, and he moves a lot, unfortunately. So it's easy to dodge in the sense that the opponent just needs to move. They can also just block it as well. But if they do not see it coming, if there's a ton of projectiles that's obscuring their view, you can actually charge this thing up and teleport next to the opponent and hit them with it. And it takes the same amount of chakra as the base Chidori. So let's see which Chidori is actually stronger. Base Chidori, looking at about 10%, between 10 to 15%. Charged up Chidori. Oh, that sucks! It takes the same. It's the same. Oh no. It's between 10 to 15% for the base and 10 to 15% for the charge. It's the same. That sucks. So basically, your only benefit for actually charging the Chidori is the fact that you teleport next to the opponent. Now again, if the opponent is moving, you're more than likely going to miss the Chidori even if you charged it all the way up. Now, this only works if the opponent is remaining stationary. But again, the only benefit is that if you're far away, you can close the gap on the opponent, 1. And 2, if they're standing stationary, you can hit them with it. But if you're up close, it's highly recommended that you do the regular Chidori, as they do the same exact damage. So now let's see the Ultra.
I'll put you to rest now.
So the Ultra actually has unlimited range, so you can actually do the Ultra from any distance. And just like every other one, the Ultra is about 30% if you miss it, and about 40% if you connect with it. That was not a good representation of the damage, but it is cool to see that you can perform that Ultra at any distance. So whoever's fighting this particular Sasuke, I will say this is a very good Sasuke to use, only because of the fact that, 1, he can close the gap with his Chidori, so if he's far away, he can get to you instantly. His tilt is pretty decent at a medium range and can provide some interesting combos, as well as his Ultra being able to connect at a distance. So if I hide behind this tree and the opponent is spamming like jutsus and projectiles, I can just kind of throw him off guard with an ultimate jutsu and possibly hit him with that ultimate jutsu. So that's extremely useful. This Sasuke is extremely useful to use, I will say that. Now let's see the actual damage of this thing. I'm assuming it's going to take between 35 to 40% damage, which is basically average. It's really cool to look at. And yes, as predicted, it takes about 35% damage. Actually slightly less from other people's Ultra that I've seen. If I'm not mistaken, I think Naruto's Ultras take slightly more. They take closer to 40% damage, whereas this is closer to 30 to 35% damage. So let's see him in his transform state now. The perfect Susanoo. Alright, so in this state, he takes a noticeably decrease in speed. Oh man, he is so slow in this mode. I will say that he is extremely slow. He is an even bigger target than the previous Susanoo, so he is going to be easier to hit. Another thing to note, that in everyone's transformed state, they are immune to shurikens. So nobody can be harmed by shurikens in their transformed state, I will say that. But he is just a huge target, and he is extremely slow in this state. He's basically pure, he has to be pure power. That's my assumption at least. So let's see what his tilt is about. So his tilt is basically a wall of black flame. And up close, it does do a decent amount of damage, but if you're this close, I'm pretty sure you're probably just going to end up doing a combo. Now, I have not tested this yet. I will test this when I get a chance, but if he does the black flame wall, is basically a wall of black flame, it may be able to block certain jutsus. So this can be a useful application if it can block certain jutsus, and that's something I will be testing at a later date. Now, in terms of his actual jutsu, it's a Chidori basically in his Susanoo form. Takes about 30% of his chakra. Let's see if I can do it a third time. I cannot do it. Oh yes, I can. Closer to 35%. But it's extremely slow. It's extremely slow. This is not a jutsu you want to do from very far. It does not have very great range to it. So this is definitely a jutsu you want to perform at a closer range. And if done at a closer range, it may not be worth the reward due to the fact that it only takes about 15% of the enemy's health. In fact, the regular Sasuke's attacks does more damage than this jutsu that hits 6 times. Doesn't knock them out very far, which is actually a good thing because you want to be up close and personal with this particular Susanoo. Susanoo's damage is not very powerful from what I can see. His damage, let's see, you're looking at about 20% damage, which is roughly around what the regular Sasuke's damage does. So in Sasuke's regular form, he does about this amount of damage. This one's probably between 20 to 25%, whereas in his regular form, it's about 20% damage. So this one does do slightly more damage, but it seems to be just one combo. He does not have more than one combo. It's all the same, and it does about 20 to 25% damage. Not that bad. Just the fact that he's so much slower makes it that much more difficult. The grab is just a punch on the floor that kind of knocks the opponent down. It's typical with other people's transform states. All in all, I would say this is probably not a great transformation, actually. It's not the most practical. He is a lot slower. His jutsu is slower and weaker, let me add. His tilt is not all that useful, unfortunately, and the attack damage you get is not worth the decrease in speed that you're gonna get. So all in all, if you do have this Sasuke, I highly recommend do not transform. He's possibly the most powerful character in the game. But let's see. So we will actually start with, let's start with combos. I know he supposedly has an unlimited combo. I'm not going to be doing that in this particular gameplay. What I'm going to be doing is just his regular base combo. So
I won't let you go easy.
So his base combo does about 15% damage, which is not bad. Doesn't make him overpowered. It's actually weaker than the other Sasuke that I was doing, the Rinne Sasuke. That combo is actually weaker. But let me break his armor first to see, because you do tend to do slightly more damage when the armor has been broken.
I won't let you go easy.
Okay, so now that the armor's broken, let's see what the combo does.
I won't let you go easy.
And it is about between 15 to 20% damage. Let's see what the bottom does.
Go to sleep.
That one's about 20 to 25% damage. Those down ones, of course, like with everybody else, is more powerful. Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, wow, that has the potential for 25% damage. I'm sorry, I actually continued the combo because I didn't realize it ended because he was in the air when it ended. But his up combo at his base takes up between 15 to 20% damage. But because he's still in the air, if you just keep tapping the button, he leaves it into his air combo, which can then result in 25% of your life, 25 to 30% of your life being taken away from a single combo. I have to say that is a bit OP. And yes, you can teleport from it, but just one combo being able to do that much. And it's not one combo, granted it is two combos, but it's one combo that like effortlessly leads to a second combo. I'm not using no chakra in order to lead to this other combo. I'm just literally just tapping the attack button, and it leads to that combo. So, and for those who can't see it, I will stop in which he stops his regular up attack. That's where he stops his regular up attack, which only does about 15% damage, but then his air attack seems to take another 10% damage roughly. So you can see how he can be overpowered. On top of that, you have that unlimited combo that people are saying, and this is all stuff that's not requiring me to use up any chakra, might I add. So that I can see why people can say he's overpowered.
Almighty push.
Now that's a very interesting move. He does have the Rinnegan, so that is something in his repertoire. Just as we've seen with every other person who has a Rinnegan, they do have access to all of Kane's attacks. And that's pretty cool that they gave that to him. Now this is a tilt that can actually deflect projectiles as well. So this is a tilt that's just as strong as regular ninjutsu. I will say it does take a little, it does have a slight delay before he actually activates it, as he mentions it before he actually pulls it out. It does have no range at all, unfortunately, and it's not a move that can be done in the air, as you can see. He cannot do the almighty push in the air. Another thing I'm noticing too is this Sasuke is missing his arm, or at least he's not using his arm.
I won't let you go easy.
Yeah. Although in game you can see that he has his arm, he does not use it, and that's mostly because in the movie he does not have his arm. His arm was cut off. So in this game, he's not using his left arm. Everything he's doing with his right arm, which is surprising due to the fact of how overpowered he is. You can see even how he runs. He kind of runs as if he doesn't have his arm, but I mean, you can kind of see through the clothing that his hand is there. It's wrapped in bandages. But again, in the movie, this is to stay true in the movie that he does not have his arm. He lost his arm in a battle, and all his combos kind of reflect that. He does not use his left arm at all. In fact, his left arm for the most part is covered. He's only using his right arm. Let's see the damage of the tilt.
Almighty push.
Which his tilt does more damage than other people's tilts. It's a very powerful tilt. Again, it can deflect projectiles as well as stop combos. If he's coming at you with a combo, this is a great defense mechanism. It does push him really far back, knocking chakra out of him. Now let's get to the jutsu. I'm taking too much time on the last Sasuke. Just he's so good. So
burn away.
That is probably one of the most overpowered jutsus. It didn't hit him.
Burn away.
Interesting. I thought that jutsu had an unlimited range because it was a projectile. It does not seem to have an unlimited range. Let me get him away from the wall. It could be because of the wall. I will say that because it's a fireball, it does do chip damage. So let's see. Can't go back anymore. I will say that this ultra is one of the this jutsu is one of the biggest jutsus in the game, as well as has one of the best tracking in the game. On top of that, due to the fact that it has the black flame mixed into it, there is no jutsu that can stop it. So if you were to shoot a particular jutsu at it, unless it's another black flame, if I'm not mistaken, another black flame can actually stop it. If you were to shoot just a regular fireball, or if you were to shoot some sort of projectile at it, it will pretty much eat through that particular projectile and continue its trajectory towards the opponent. And again, the tracking on it is really good. They do kind of need to nerf the accuracy on it, because the accuracy on it is amazing. And not to say that it's to the point where you can't dodge it, because you can still dodge it, but it is fairly difficult to dodge due to the fact that the accuracy and the size. It is a relatively slow jutsu. It doesn't move very fast. But again, it does have that added bonus of being pretty much invincible. It's going to go where it's going to go, and then it's going to explode whether it hits you or not. It does not have unlimited range, which is interesting. I thought because it was a projectile that it will travel across the entire screen, but if your opponent has enough range on you, the jutsu will stop short. Interesting. It does consume about 35% of your chakra, so you can only do it about two times before you need to charge up your chakra. Let me just test that one more time. That's one. That's two. and it needs to charge up a little bit more before I can use another one. Yeah, so it takes about 35 to 40% of your chakra. So you can only shoot it about twice before you can before you need to charge up a little bit more before you can shoot a third one out. Now in terms of the damage, it does a base of between 10 to 15%, but since it's a flame ball, it does do chip damage, assuming that that ability is activated. So you can be looking between 15 to 20% damage in total, which is amazing. Because anything that does chip damage is good because they're still going to be losing damage as you're attacking them. So that's always a plus. So let's see that again. Base damage is between 10 to 15%, not the most powerful initial hit, but the base damage, the chip damage is what gets them in the long run, in which it can take between 15 to 20% of their health. So that's amazing. Now we are going to do the ultimate jutsu. Do the range on this thing. Okay, so that's one of his downfalls. His ultimate jutsu does not have much range at all. Just like most other jutsus, the initial jutsu is about 30%, and if you hit it, it takes about 40% of the chakra. And let's see what the damage is on it.
I have no choice.
Staying true, he's not using his left hand, he's only using his right. And it's a visually beautiful jutsu, but it takes about the same amount of power as all of the other Sasuke's ultra jutsu takes, which is about 35%. So that's interesting. For somebody who only has one arm, or at least is only using one arm in this game, in the actual, you know, anime and manga, he only has his one arm. But in this game, he actually has both arms. He's just using only one. He's a very powerful character. I haven't even transformed with him yet, but his base Sasuke is extremely powerful. His attacks are very powerful and very quick. His jutsu is very powerful, very accurate, does chip damage. His tilt is extremely powerful. I'm not seeing much different, much downside to this particular Sasuke. From what I can see, he's definitely the best Sasuke in the game. In terms of his speed, he is relatively faster compared to his other iterations, just slightly though. And I see him in the transform state.
Time to end this.
Perfect Susanoo once again. This may be his biggest downside. So again, this Susanoo seems to be the same exact Susanoo as the last one. He's very, very slow, a huge target, very easy to hit. So you are sacrificing your speed once transforming into Susanoo. His combo looks like it's about the same. His jutsu is definitely the same. Let's see what his tilt is. His tilt is exactly the same. So it seems like this is the same exact Susanoo as the sharigan Sasuke. His attack does about the same, actually does about the same amount of damage as his regular attacks, with the exception of his up combo, which can be changed to the air combo very easily. He only has that one combo from what I can see here. His jutsu does about 10 to 15% damage. It's not a very powerful jutsu. Again, it's a relatively slow jutsu as well. Not something I can recommend. It may be a good guard break, I will say that. But for an opponent that's moving, it's not really going to hit them because of how slow it is. So that's pretty much it for Sasuke. I do not recommend transforming. If you are going to be playing the Last Sasuke, you are better off staying in his regular state. Whereas the decrease in speed and huge target and also just regular attacks that the Susanoo state has is not worth transforming into. Although you may get like a range increase, that's the benefit of the bigger